what is personality? It's a projection that we make of each other, and there is a choice as to whether or not we identify with that persona.
But to get better at a skill is one thing, and to be fulfilled in life is a completely different thing. And if you are fighting, I mean, you cannot be fulfilled. You cannot be at peace.
So I would just recommend that you keep suffering and you keep torturing yourself until you say, this is so pointless, and it will naturally fall off of you.
So I think we're quite interested to hear, what's this case you have for why perhaps we need to be cautious of our imagination.
So I have been wanting to ask you this question for a while now, and it is coming out of my career, but it is a very spiritual question for me. So I will phrase this question in a personal context, but I will also try to phrase it in a more general context. If I try to phrase it in the context of my life and my career, the question will be, how do scientists get a glimpse of divinity through their work? And if I want to put it more generally, I think I can put it as, how can we integrate the work of life in our work of bread? Because I totally agree with you when you say that to know thyself is the highest form of knowledge. So I believe that there must be ways of integrating work of life into work of bread, in the sense that we can make our work of bread into a playground for work of life. And at this point, what I'm asking might become a little vague, because you have also talked about how people who did great things and found meaning through their craft, be it Einstein or Leonardo da Vinci, all of these people built their own personal connection to their craft. So I'll not ask you how I should build my personal connection to the mathematical research that I do, because that's something very personal and I have to do it myself. However, I'm wondering if there are any characteristics that we can see in people who have built their own personal connection to their thing. Characteristics for, let's say, scientists or artists, so that they know that they're doing their science or art in the right spirit. And this question has been driving me for a few years now. And every time I read something or listen to you speaking, I feel like it gives me something to think about it one way or another, because the question is always in the back of my mind. And my belief that this is possible was enhanced when I was reading Emerson's American Scholar a few months ago. Because right in the second page, there's a paragraph that completely blew my mind. I mean, everything Emerson writes blows my mind, but this was even more special because he was talking about the person who tries to see the soul through his own work. And I will not read the whole paragraph, but I want to quickly read 3 sentences from that paragraph. So he begins by asking, what is the root? Is it not the soul of his soul? When he has learned to worship the soul and to see that the natural philosophy that now is only the first gropings of its gigantic hand, he shall look forward to an ever-expanding knowledge as to a becoming creator. He will see that nature is the opposite of the soul, answering to it part for part. One is seal and one is print. Its beauty is the beauty of his own mind. Its laws are the laws of his own mind. Nature then becomes to him the measure of his attainments. So much of nature as he is ignorant of, so much of his own mind does he not yet possess. And in fine, knowing thyself and studying nature becomes at last one maxim. So this is evidence right here, because even Emerson is saying that it is possible to study nature by knowing thyself. So my question is, how do we worship the soul when we are doing our work? And how do we know that we are doing it in the right spirit? I hope it makes sense.
Of course it makes sense. Of course it does. And I think we're all wondering about that or thinking about that. And not only is it possible, but it is one of the highest joys a human being can experience, I think, in life. And when I say joy, I don't mean passion. I don't mean getting a thrill out of it. I don't mean being ecstatic about something. I mean the calm, completely rational, not out of its mind, very much in its mind, approval, the highest approval a human being can see in their own life. is to live in the way that a human thinks, not just to think it, but to live it. And you live it with everything that you do every day, or at least you can. And if you don't, that's just something that you do. But yeah, first of all, I want to say thank you for bringing this up, because most people, most of the time, do not even think about this. They are not even aware that there is such a thing as the work of life, when the work of life is the fundament of everything. And we only think about the work of bread because the work of bread is sort of forced on us, because that's in the physical realm, right? When we don't eat for a while, we get hungry. And so we get into the work of bread automatically. It is forced on us by physicality, so to speak. But there's a whole nother dimension that we are meant to live in, but that we are not forced to live in, right? If you believe in God, and as you know, all are welcome here, God is just another word for truth, in my opinion. Every true believer, every truly religious person in every religion knows that God is not a proper name. God is just what we call truth. And one of the many names, synonyms, or words that truly describe what truly religious people know as God is truth. And truth, God, as we all know, does not force you into goodness, into beauty. That's what so many people who are disappointed and are judging society, the world, the universe, don't understand, because they see wrongdoing, they see mistakes, they see badness, they see violence, they see disrespect, they see injustice, and they think that if there is a God, it's a God that is giving them all these things. But rather, it is just the doing of people who have chosen to not give themselves the very best things that the universe has to offer. All those people who choose, because as we said, the universe, God, truth, whatever you want to call it, does not force you into goodness, it does not force you into justice, and does not force you into injustice either. It's a decision. And sometimes it's an aware decision, sometimes it's an unaware decision. Although I would argue that whenever there is awareness, one cannot decide towards injustice. It's inherently out of ignorance that injustice happens. And so it's the absence of something good. Every wrongdoing is the absence of right doing. Every injustice is the absence of a just act. It is not a positive thing in itself, right? And so we live in this beautiful universe, but we choose to only see the wrongdoing because in many ways we're not aware of the goodness. But the wrongdoing, the mistake, proves its counterpart. Otherwise, there would be nothing to name it. If there only was wrongdoing, you wouldn't be able to see wrongdoing because it's all that there would be. You would not be able to name it by differentiating it. And so we're not aware of this. And so when you bring up Emerson, just as a major side note, if you're not reading Emerson, you're missing something. I said that many times, and I will say it every time, and especially since you bring it up, I want to say it again. I suggest that everyone reads Emerson's essays, particularly. He also wrote poems, but I particularly enjoy the essays. And you will always, in his essays, I promise you this, you will always see in his essays, even if it's just one sentence out of many, something that you have been thinking about, but that you never wrote down. But he wrote it down. And his writing grows as you grow. And so there's no such thing as reading in Emerson's essay one time and having read it. No such thing. If in 3 months you come back to it and you've been engaged in the work of life, things have been happening in your mind, you will see things that were there before, but that you could not see. And so I encourage you, pick up Emerson. I'm sure you can find it very, very cheaply since it's older. And as far as the work of life and the work of bread, and talking about people such as Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci, which I recommend also that you read their biographies, because it will point something very important out to you. That we have this false separation of the so-called scientific mind or reason and the so-called spiritual mind, and that these are somehow at odds, when the spiritual mind and scientific mind, in fact, are two halves of one whole. And so too is the physical realm and the realm of ideas, two halves of one whole. There have been many streams of thought, schools of philosophy, and even entire religions, or at least sects of religions, who have denied one or the other. There have been many who deny this world, still exists to this day in Christianity, that especially that I'm aware of, who think that this world is ruled by the devil and that heaven is actually ruled by God, by the good one. And so this world is just a temporary and very uncomfortable testing ground that we just have to endure so that we get our ultimate prize, which is heaven. And vice versa, there have been people who glorify the world and completely ignore the realm of ideas, the so-called spiritual mind, and think that everything is material and that only that matters, and there's no connection to anything. Everything is a sloppy accident. And as you know, neither one of these people have ever found peace, because according to themselves, they are always at odds with half of the universe. They themselves say this. And so how can you be frustrated with something, disappointed with something, resentful with something, judgy at something, looking down on something, or looking up at something, and be at peace? It's not possible. And Einstein, for example, called himself a religious non-believer. And he did that on purpose. Of course, it's sort of a paradox, but he's pointing something out, that he sees the whole. He doesn't, even though he was a scientist, very much, math and everything, he's not just looking at the world in that way. He's seeing the totality of it and the uniformity in it and the singularity in it. He does not look at it as a multiplicity. And it's same with Da Vinci. He got to ideas through the body, and to the body through ideas, and in and out in all sorts of ways. And so your work of bread, the so-called job that you go to, is your playground, your physical playground, in which ideas and the origins of all this physical playground that has been made possible, and that is honestly so beautiful, is behind. And so you can get to the ideas through objects, through the physical world, to the physical realm. You can get to the realm of ideas, but not only as a stepping stone, right? Not using the physical world just to get somewhere, but to see that it's all one and that it's all beautiful. And this is not to say that every job is conducive to doing this. Of course not.
Right.
There are jobs created by unaware people, by entire societies who are dominated by unawareness, that are just there to fulfill a simple function, if that. I mean, there are so many jobs that are based on harmful activities for what people consider to be profit, which in reality is nothing but something that destroys them. And they don't know it because they're ignorant, because they're unaware. And so, of course, there have been jobs created of this nature and for that purpose alone. But this is what an aware person will see. They will see that profession, so-called profession, job, career, whatever you want to call it, is based in unawareness or is not conducive to awareness, is just a menace to the world and to myself, most importantly. And so they will stop pursuing it. And if they're already in it, they will realize there is no requirement for me to do this. Yes, society, again, that's also not the kind of a dangerous word sometimes, but, everything that you've ever experienced, let's put it that way, all the people that have ever talked to you, yes, most likely they have told you that you need a career, that you need to satisfy the demands of the work of bread and your physicality and your nature, your physical nature and your stomach certainly, but also so many more things to pay your bills, so to speak. But no one, or a relatively small percentage of people, only tell you that you have no requirement, no obligation whatsoever to satisfy anything at all. When people say, well, I have to pay my bills, I have to eat, I have to do this and that. No, you don't. No, you don't. There is no obligation to you that requires you to be alive at all. And hear me out on this. I know it sounds very negative and very sort of life-denying, but it really is not. It's been associated as that, but it's really not. Because other people might require that of you. They might say, hey, you need to take care of me. I demand that you take care of me. Or I demand that you, since you are my husband, my child, my whatever, that you accomplish certain things that make me proud. And many other demands that people say that they have on us, directly or indirectly, right? But truth is, they have no right to require it of us. Does any human being own another human being? Even in slavery, that was not possible to the fullest extent because you could never own someone spiritually. You can restrict their physical movements and you can sort of force them to do certain things. But their ultimate freedom is in their own hands. That ultimate freedom being that they just choose not to participate in that anymore. And you can never get into someone's mind if it's an aware person. So that control ends somewhere. But no one owns another human being in the true sense. In the physical sense, yeah, it's possible and it has happened, but even that is a minority in the world now. But spiritually, it's not possible. And so when someone says, I require that you make me proud, I require that you honor me, I require that you make me feel good, I require that you take care of my physical needs, they have no right. Again, whether you believe in God or just truth, the universe, God does not require that. God does not give them that authority. The universe does not give them that authority. And so they don't get to do it. So that's done. You can throw that out. And does God require us to make anyone proud? Does God require us to prove anything to anyone, including to God, including to ourselves? No. God does not even require you to feed yourself. God says, I gave you this life, and this life is the most precious gift, but it is given to you. It is yours. I will not force you to do anything with it, any particular thing. You're free to do whatever. And you're free to put it down also. It's your gift. You can do with it whatever you want. And again, if God is not a good word for you, if you don't believe in religion, if you just think of the universe as being something, then in the same way, there is nowhere on any star that is written, thou shalt make something of thyself. Where's the evidence of the universe demanding this of you? Where's the evidence of the universe requiring anything whatsoever of you? And so you're free to do whatever you want. So if you are in a work of bread that is not conducive to the work of life, to all what we just talked about, a work that puts requirements on you that divinely are not even required of you, but profanely are required of you, which, again, profanely, no one and nothing is allowed to require anything of you, then you are 100% free to leave it or to not be engaged with it, or to do it for a while because your physical need demanded, but always have it in the back of your mind that this is not required of me. I choose to do this. And so a person with this awareness, with this knowledge, which is fact, by the way, if anyone disagrees, let's talk about it. But I am seeing it, and until I'm proven otherwise, I will continue to see it as fact that God, the universe, truth, justice, whatever you want to call it, whatever you like, love, requires nothing of you. Nothing. And so if that's fact, and if we are aware of this fact, and we like to be aware of facts, we don't like to be ignorant, then you know that not a single thing is required of you, and that includes everything, because nothing is required of you. And so everything you do, ultimately, you choose to do. It is your privilege to do it, and your privilege not to do it. So if you resent doing something, stop doing it. Oh, but I can't because my family expects it from me. It requires it from me. Society does. It would be frowned upon to not do that. Well, keep suffering then. You have the right to suffer. Just like nothing is required of you, you have the right also to do whatever you want. And if you want to keep suffering, you have the right to do that, and no one is allowed to judge you for it, and no one is allowed to try to force you out of it into rightness and justice and goodness and beauty and understanding and awareness and contentment and peace. No one is allowed to do that, and they can't. Everyone has the right to be wrong. But again, the person with awareness who knows this fundamental non-existence of requirements and this fundamental right to do whatever they want with this gift of the highest order that has been given to them, and they're completely free to do with whatever they want with it, will naturally be inclined to seek a work of bread for themselves that is in some way, shape, or form conducive to them seeing the beauty of this universe, through their physical existence and in their physical existence, but also one that extends beyond the physical existence and their physical vision into the realm of ideas and the singularity which connects it all. And you mentioned that your profession, your career, or perhaps what you're engaged with right now, it includes mathematics or is centered around mathematics. That is one of the many perfect physical occupations, activities one can be engaged in to not only see, but even express the beauty of this universe, both physically as well as, for the lack of a better word, spiritually. The components of ideas, both of them, right? And this is not to say, go ahead.
Because like one of the like leading mathematicians, he was from India. His name was Srinivasa Ramanujan. I think the movie and the book The Man Who Knew Infinity was based on him. So people who have read that book or watched that movie, they would know that he said this sentence, that an equation for me has no meaning unless it expresses a thought of God. So I totally agree that, mathematics is really powerful and it can really express spirituality and God and see the totality and singularity, as you said. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, not at all. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And I did watch that movie. It's an all right movie. As a movie, it's an all right movie. It's a good story. So I would recommend it.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we can put it in the chat, whoever knows the movie, just as a little movie
And
recommendation by the side. But I also want to say, specifically with the person you mentioned, I want to tell everyone, perhaps because of my own experience with myself, because I used to do this, stop looking down to people who believe in God or who use the word God, right? That's why I always do the disclaimer whenever I use the word God. You can replace it with the word universe, because everyone who has any sort of meaning in their life are persons who have surrendered to something greater than themselves. Every single person who has meaning in their lives are persons who have surrendered to something greater than themselves. Everyone. Try, even if it's just to prove me wrong or to prove people who think like this wrong, or just as a sport, try to find one single person who has meaning in their lives, who has not surrendered themselves, who does not trust, believe in something greater than themselves. Not possible. And so as human beings, as animals, we have developed a certain vocabulary in each language. And most of these languages have the word God in it. And so when someone has this experience, when they see something greater than themselves or just know of its existence, they might come to use the word God, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there are a lot of people who misunderstand that, and there are a lot of people who say God and don't know what they're talking about, for or against, right? There are people who worship God and don't know what they're worshiping, and they're doing the wrong thing objectively. And there are people who deny God and don't even know what they're denying. So just when you hear the word God, stop your judgment. That judgment is destroying you, because it's keeping you from what the word relates to. The word itself is keeping you from the reality that is behind it. And so I advise everyone, just a suggestion, think about it like that, because, and by the way, if you want to have an amazing experience as a person who looks down on people who believe in God or who are religious in the true sense, I urge you to pick up the Bible, the Quran, whatever you want, and every time you see the word God in your mind, replace it with the word universe. And you will be most amazed by what you're reading. And you will feel something. And vice versa. All those people who look down on people who think of science as something very important, or who pride themselves on being scientifically minded, very reasonable, if those people who are of a so-called religious nature, who look down on people who believe in science or who hold science as very important, go read or watch a documentary or read a scientific book, and every time it says fact, every time it says information, every time it says knowledge, replace it with the word God. And every time you see the beauty of a flower blooming or an animal being born, or an animal, frankly, just having a skill that it never needed to learn, that it somehow is inside of it, and it automatically knows to do it when the situation arises, and to see that that comes from a creation is the most beautiful feeling. And so if science is far away to you now, if it feels cold to you, it will warm it up for you. And if religion, if God seems so dim for you, to you, it will brighten it up for you. You know, I always say the spiritual mind without the scientific mind is dim. And the scientific mind without the spiritual mind is cold. But a mind that is both scientific as well as spiritual is on fire. It really is true. And you don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be a mathematician. You don't have to be, or vice versa, you don't have to become a theologian or a priest or a monk or whatever to experience this. This is open to every single human being. This is why I say you don't need to so-called make something of yourself to come to this. Some sort of high position, some sort of unique, special thing. Only then can you experience special things. No. You need to fulfill, if you want to live, again, you're not required to do anything, right? But if you do want to live, then you need to eat. Yes. And then you need to pay certain bills, not as many bills as most people do, but certain bills. And so you need to make money however you can to that extent. But that extent truly is not as high and is not as demanding as we make it to be. And as soon as that is fulfilled, you are freed up, if you're a person that's aware, a person who is in contact with truth, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. You are freed up to watch a documentary with this mindset and get all the beautiful, proper joy that this world, this universe has to offer. And you are free to buy yourself a little book consisting of Seneca's letters or Marcus Aurelius's meditations, and to go through them and to sit. How much does that cost? What does that require of you? Nothing. It's attainable to everyone. And that already is the height of literacy. How many thousands of years of ingenuity and innovation and evolution also to some point for you to get to a point to be a literate animal that can read words, write down words, pass them along over thousands of years and accumulate knowledge. And all of that is in a $3 copy of Marcus Aurelius' meditation or any other book, really. It's contained. So through that little piece of paper, of book, of assemblage of cheaply put together pages through mass production, you have access to the entire beauty of this universe. And so those who think they need to struggle and suffer and honestly do some lying and cheating in the process too for 30 years in order to gain this freedom and this peace and this understanding and this awareness and the physical space to be able to do this and to carve out time to be able to do this, they're lying to themselves and they're actively destroying themselves, and they've fallen into ambition. the universe, God, again, whatever you want to call it, does not require ambition from you. It does not require you to delay yourself for a year, 10 years, 30 years, until retirement, whatever you think it is. It does not require that of you. If you are unable to be someone who has time now, who can sit still now, who can see the beauty in the universe now, you will also not be that person in 20 years then. There's nothing outside of you that will make you that person, that will allow you to become that person. Only you can do that. And that is what we call the work of life. To do that for yourself, by yourself, to yourself, is the work of life. And a person who is engaged in the work of life will naturally, even if it takes time, because in the physical realm, things just take time, and that's just how it is, and that's okay, will naturally gravitate to an occupation, to the people around themselves, to their own habits that will be conducive to this way of living.
Right. And I mean, the so-called academic achievements hardly have anything to do with knowing thyself, right? I have seen researchers and scientists, because I work with them, they're at the peak of their craft, but some of them, in fact, most of them are so bitter and resentful. And yet there are high school math teachers who just teach math at high school and they live a life of such fulfillment. So I think there's something that you mentioned here. If we just access these ideas and these books and try to engage with them, that itself is the highest science in itself, right? Because can there be any science that's higher than the purification of one's own mind, right? Can there be any art then higher than living a virtuous life? There cannot be. And it reminds me of one example that you gave in one of the kinships in September. I think at that time we were having kinships once in 2 weeks, and I was speaking to you on a similar topic, and you gave this example of an ocean explorer, and you asked me, like, who is a better ocean explorer? Is it the one who does his job and comes home to worry about everything that's not going okay with his family? Or is it the ocean explorer who knows themselves and who understands human nature? And you say that the latter ocean explorer is not just an ocean explorer or a scientist. He is also the best friend, the best husband, and the best parent. So it kind of shows that, knowing thyself, as you said, will automatically like fix the other aspects of our life.
100%. Yeah. This is what everyone is telling you, right? And I'm saying this because I took the same suggestions from the same people that I recommend you listen to. But this is what everyone, every religion also has been telling you. Give yourself to the highest good. Give yourself to the highest good. And if you truly dedicate yourself, if you let everything else go, all your ambition, all your goals, all your opinions, and all your judgments, and all your senses of identity, I am this person. And if you finally give up fighting with everyone, or in the name of certain things, if you finally stop fighting for justice, if you finally stop fighting for your reputation, for your family's reputation, if you finally stop taking revenge, if you finally stop being bothered by being so-called disrespected, you will be opened up, and that is the very process, the very way of giving yourself to the highest good, to dedicating yourself to the highest good. If you do that, the highest good, which is above everything else, will provide to you everything below itself. And I'm not ashamed of saying that includes money. That includes your living. That includes hobbies. That includes what you want to do with your time. That includes certain materialistic things. It will be given to you. I'm not afraid to talk about it because we're always here trying to think of the highest ideas and the least profane things. But I am telling you, everything will be given to you. You will be healthier. You will feel better. And a healthier person who feels better will also look better. And again, not that that's important, but I'm literally saying the highest good, once you dedicate yourself to that, it will give you everything below itself. You dedicate, because you can only dedicate yourself to one thing. It can be career, it can be your reputation, it can be wealth, it can be whatever. Or, of course, it can be the highest good. And the highest good simply is reality. I said it before, truth is true because it's real. And reality is real because it's true. And so every single thing that happens to you in your life is reality. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening. If it wasn't happening, it wouldn't be reality. And if it is happening, it is reality. And if it is happening, it is also necessary. Because if it wasn't necessary, it wouldn't be happening. And everything that is real and necessary is also true. And so in that sense, truth and reality are the same thing. And God is, or truth and reality is a synonym of God, of the universe. Everything within the universe are things that are real, necessary, and true. This goes for the physical universe as well as everything else. And that's why I say some of God's names are truth and reality and necessity and awareness. Because everything that exists is true, it's necessary, it's real, it's aware. And so to give yourself to truth is to give yourself to reality, meaning to stop resenting reality, to stop saying, well, this thing that is happening to me is bad. How can anything that is true, real, and necessary be bad for you? Truth has never hurt you. And so if you stop fighting with it, and to stop fighting it doesn't mean to say, to get yourself to love it, to enjoy it, to get a thrill from it. Quite the opposite. It is just to realize, yeah, it is happening. I won't deny it. Because everything we do in our lives is to try to control reality. We think we know better what is good, what should be real, what should be necessary, than reality and truth and necessity itself. We can't just let things happen, because then we think they're happening by accident. Just because you're not controlling something doesn't mean they're happening by accident. Quite the opposite. Because you did not make yourself. Truth and necessity and reality was involved in your making as well. You were necessary as a species, as an individual human being. Otherwise, you would not exist. And I'm not saying there's a divine plan. I'm not saying there's a script. I'm literally speaking scientifically. If you exist, you were necessary. Those cells did split. They did come together. You did incubate, so to speak, and you were born, and you did reach maturity, and you are living, and you are alive, and the oxygen that comes into your lungs is working, and it is being absorbed, and it is going to where it is needed in your body. All of this is happening. It is part of reality. It is part of truth. It is part, therefore, of necessity. And so what is our fighting for? And what's with the thinking that we know better? Because every time you say this thing that is happening in the world, whether it's in the news, in politics, or in your own life, or in your backyard, or in your dog's life, when you say, oh, that's good, that means you know every possible option, you know the value of each of them, you know exactly what is what, and you're judging it now to be right and good. How do you know? And same with what's bad. So to give yourself, to submit to the highest good, is to simply not fight reality anymore. And once you do that, you have dedicated yourself to the highest good. These are two of the same things. This is the same thing. To stop fighting reality is to give yourself to dedicate yourself to the highest good. And once you do that, like I said, the highest good, reality, the source of everything and the nature of everything, will start providing everything below itself for you. Not as a reward. It doesn't work like that. But just as the necessary consequence of what you have done.
Right. No, I really like this part that you mentioned about fighting and struggling, because I started taking mathematics seriously as a teenager in high school, but at that time I did not realize that it was my ego dominating. I was passionate, I was ambitious, I wanted to get better, and I did get better. But to get better at a scale is one thing, and to be fulfilled in life is a completely different thing. And if you are fighting, I mean, you cannot be fulfilled, you cannot be at peace. So I kept getting better and I started enjoying mathematics, but I was also becoming restless. I got sleepless nights worrying about whether I would get this position or not, whether I would get the scholarship or not. And this is the complete opposite state of knowing thyself. So I felt that there must be something fundamental missing there. So in the last couple of years, I'm trying to get rid of my passion and ambition and just to do the work for the sake of my interest in the subject and for the beauty of the subject, without expecting any posterity or outcome. And thank you once again for pointing me to these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you are in that attitude, so to speak, much more likely, wouldn't you agree, to actually find success in your field. Not that this matters. Again, this is a profane thing. It's below the highest good. But just to illustrate that example, when I said, like, when you give yourself the highest good will provide everything below itself for you. Once you let go of ambition, which is a form of fighting reality, right? You actually are much more likely to so-called succeed in all the things that you used to be ambitious about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly the mechanism of what I'm speaking of. Again, it's not as a reward. It's not that there's this conscious being sitting on top of a cloud watching you and saying, he has let go of his ambition, let's reward him. No, not like that. As a necessary consequence of you doing it just because you love doing it, you will be freed up to actually see certain things in your work that maybe were undiscovered before, or not explained as well before, or not understood as well before. You are freeing yourself up to accomplish all of those things that you before were maybe ambitious for due to being driven by the ego, but that also at the same time was taking your ability to do these things away from you by the resentment and that drive and that frustration that never went anywhere. And so it's just the funniest thing if you think about it, and it's very interesting. So I'm not sure if I actually answered your question, so I apologize if I didn't, but it's sort of the kind of question that you asked that is just at the heart of everything in so many ways that there really isn't a short answer to it or even a comprehensive answer to it that I could give as a human being in one sitting without passing out. But that's sort of what I think about it. And I think there's something in there for all of us to catch a glimpse of what it really means to see the singularity and to see the commonality and to just be guided by something that will get rid of that false separation of, now I'm going to work, so I'm shutting myself off and I'm just going to do what I need to do and then come back and hope to live afterwards, kind of thing. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, totally. Thank you for all the insights. And I totally agree that it's not possible to give one definitive answer to such a question. And I think that the best answer to these kind of questions is that when the questions dissolve themselves as you think about them and as you contemplate on them, right? So thank you once again. I really appreciate your time and your response and all the insights that you share here as well as otherwise in other places. Thanks.
Absolutely. And I very much appreciate that you are thinking about these things and that you are in that way, in the most positive way, making us think about them. And because this is what it is. This is, like I said, the highest joy to being a human being, to be able to contemplate and live according to, in a very, very real way, to these thoughts and to these insights. So I appreciate that very much. I'll put you back to the audience again. Thank you very much. And it's a very important question that I hope we're all contemplating a lot of our lives, but not obsessing on it. This is a beautiful thing that you get to do when you're contemplating this. It's not a problem to be solved. It's not a difficulty to be overcome, not an obstacle to your happiness. It is the very thing itself. It's beautiful. And any insight you get from it is just its own sort of proper joy, right? Not like a physical joy that is just passing and often regrettable even, but it's a proper joy. And so I will invite our next speaker here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, yes. So yesterday you offered a little breadcrumb. You suggested that you're not sure if we should ever engage with our imagination. And I think first and foremost, it led to quite a lively discussion between ourselves. So I think we're quite interested to hear, what's this case you have for why perhaps we need to be cautious of our imagination. But also it felt like it's quite an open topic for you, or something you're currently deliberating on. So I'm also quite interested about how you engage with these things that you're currently deliberating on. And in the case of imagination, I think, what's first of all is interesting to me is I think so much of the advice you give is very practical and pragmatic. It's all, it's got a very clear objective, this pursuit of the good life. And so in one regard, I could see, the way you want to kind of operationalize or consider, whether or not you should engage in something is in the game of a good life. But I'm also interested to know if you also give sometimes the kind of metaphysics or like the limits of knowing consideration in this sort of thing. And I think it's particularly relevant with imagination, because for me, in my own metaphysics, it's imagination all the way down. My own personal take is we're shut off from reality. I'm convinced can be that there is such a thing as reality, but we only have indirect access to it. And as such, what we're in the game of is trying to make our imagination as close to reality as possible. So I'm wondering if that's something that's relevant to you, or is it more that you're making a disambiguation at a higher level, like between fantasy and reality rather than imagination per se. And some other questions as well. I'm not too sure if I should like go through all the questions or just kind of leave the big topics one at a time.
However you like. I mean, it will naturally lead to another, and I'll ask you always if you have more questions. But yeah, you can one by one or whatever you want.
Yeah. So then another thing I was kind of pondering on is, so that in the discussion yesterday, it led to a lot of discussion around art and what is this instinctive, intuitive nature that behind the inspiration that where art occurs, and the pleasure that comes around this. And so I was also wondering, when you're in this process of considering, is imagination got some sort of vice around it? Is there a risk sometimes there can be a confusion between some sort of like asceticism, there's an instinctive skepticism to things that derive pleasure in and of their own right. And so how is, for you, is there a bright line between, asceticism and or trying to eradicate vice from our life? Or sometimes you think that boundary can be quite blurred and cause confusion? And then I had another question as well, so like in this case here of like something you're uncertain about, what's the process you go through to try and resolve that ambiguity for yourself? And in quite a meta level, do you not think that like if we've got these topics that we're unsure about, it requires imagination? We need to think of alternate opinions or way of existence in life, and that by its very nature is engaging with our imagination.
Yeah, so I'll talk about what I think about imagination, what I've been processing, and I'm still ongoing in processing, and then maybe at the end you'll tell me if there's or new questions or anything unanswered that you would like to talk about further. I think that's the best way to do it. And so I've been noticing in the past quite a few weeks, maybe even past few months, that I've been really being harassed. I was really being harassed by my imagination. And harassment is the right word, because it's something that just happens to you. You don't create it. You can encourage it, but it's just something that happens to you outside of you. You are not your imagination. And I was having these like half awake, half dreaming times of when I was just seeing the most sort of obscure, irrelevant, uncomfortable, strange, and just, in no way useful images, like almost dreamlike, but clearly stemming from the imagination. Like, I'm awake, I'm not just dreaming. You find yourself in those moments. You might be on the bus, you might even be driving, or you might be walking, or you're sitting on your couch, or you're watching a movie, or you have a fire in the fireplace somewhere, and you're watching that, and images occur in your mind. You didn't intend on it, and it's not comfortable to you, and they're harassing you, and you have to distract yourself just to get away from them. And that, I've been paying more and more attention to that very fact that I think occurs within everyone. And I've just realized what a big separation there is between the true me, myself, just sitting there, enjoying myself, not doing anything, just sitting there. And then the things that are happening to me, which are so uncomfortable and unnecessary seeming and external, and literally harassing me, right? I remember this one instance where I think I was actually having a fire in the fireplace. I was just sitting there, not doing anything, not on my phone or anything, just watching the fire, as I like to do. And all of a sudden I went into this like story, essentially. This I would call it, if I was sleeping, I would call it a dream, where I'm sort of in a high-rise apartment building with like big windows, and the windows only open a crack, and I see this hummingbird flying inside. Hummingbird, I don't know why. And it's like buzzing all around the room, and I'm just annoyed by it because, and hummingbirds, if you know, or if everyone knows it, are very, very, very small. They're almost the size of a very large bug, right? And so it's just like whizzing around and just annoying. It obviously needs to go, right? And so I'm trying to encourage it to get back out through the very crack that it came in from. And I'm just annoyed. It's a disruption to my day, right? And so I'm trying to, it's not going, it's not understanding that this entire wall, which is consisting of windows of glass, is not something where it can go out of, but it only has a sliver to go. So it's not understanding that, obviously. And then all of a sudden, this hummingbird turns into my dog, Layla. I know. And so now it's my dog, but I know for a fact that it's the hummingbird, right? Because it's just changed into my dog. This is not actually my dog. No way. And so naturally, I'm still trying to get it out. Even though it now has the shape of my dog, I'm encouraging it to jump out of the window. Because I'm convinced it's the hummingbird. I saw it morph into my dog. And so I'm still like trying to obstruct it from going anywhere else, and encouraging it, go out of this window, fly away, just live your life, but I just don't want you inside of here. But it's my dog. And so I'm encouraging the dog. And she finally does jump out of the window. And I see her falling. And I'm convinced that any moment now it's going to turn back into the hummingbird, because it was just an illusion. It's going to turn back into the hummingbird and just fly, and everything's going to be fine. It's not happening. She's still falling, and she's falling, and she's falling, and I see and hear her hit the ground. And like I said, I'm fully awake. I'm just looking into the fire, and I ask myself, what was that? I mean, seriously, what was that? Why? Why do I need to be harassed like this? And so, and this is only one of the very, very many, again, if I was sleeping, I would call them dreams, stories, things that occurred to me within my imagination, clearly. And so, but instead of fighting it, I knew I had to let it happen, because I was not going to ignore it any longer, right? Because it is real in the sense that it is really occurring in my imagination, and it keeps happening, and I have no control over it. And so instead of distracting myself as I have been doing it all my life, I decided to finally let it happen to its fullest extent. And so for the past couple of months, I don't know, I haven't really been counting. And still to this day, to a large extent, I haven't been reading very much. I haven't been, because it seems to be occurring more in the morning. I haven't been reading much. I haven't been writing as much. And all other things, I just let it happen. And it's, giving it full rein, essentially, not at all standing in its way. So that what I was trying to do, and this is happening instinctively, no one told me to do this, I was trying to make myself sick of it. I was not encouraging it, but allowing it to happen without distracting myself, so that it would happen to me so much and with such intensity that I would get disgusted by it. And it doesn't know that it's doing this. What it thinks is that it's taking over my life, and that I have given up, and that it can just have whatever it wants, not realizing that the more it was doing it, the more it was making itself obvious to me, and the more it was making its negative effects, all the damage and all the harassment that it was doing to me, it was making it more obvious to me. And so I let it happen, and I finally saw that I was defending the imagination. Just as angry people defend anger, I was defending the imagination. Because how do angry people defend anger? They know that anger is destroying them. They know that anger is harming them. They know that as long as they have anger, they cannot have peace. So why don't they get rid of it? I talk to a lot of angry people, or people who defend anger, and they always say the same thing. They say it's natural. They say it's necessary. They say because we're humans, it is in our nature, and we need it. And whenever I ask them what they need it for, they say, it gives me the motivation, it gives me the drive, it gives me the energy to do something about the very things that anger me. And the things that anger me, of course, because I have righteous anger, because I'm such a great person, are things that are unjust in this world, wrong in this world, that shouldn't be happening. And so it gives me the motivation to fight against injustice. What's better than that? Without that, I would have no energy. Without that, all the bad guys would be let off scot-free. No one would be holding them accountable, except those people who have righteous anger. And they invented that term, right? Righteous anger. Because they know that their enemies have anger, that all bad things come from anger, from hatred. And so they want to differentiate themselves somehow from those people, and so they call it righteous anger. I know I'm doing a terrible thing, but I'm doing it for the right reason, for the good reason, so that's why it's righteous anger. Okay. And this is how hatred spreads, by the way. it spreads through the illusion. Anger begets anger. And good people allow anger in their lives by the illusion. It is transmitted to them through the illusion of righteous anger. And once they're angry, it's over. The mind, the awareness is gone, and they're just going to be fueled by anger for the rest of their lives. And at that point, anger does not need to even justify themselves to them, but it begins to justify itself to the aware, good, proper mind by calling itself righteous. That's how anger infiltrates us, good people. And I realized that I was doing the same exact thing as those angry people with imagination. I was seeing through the illusion of righteous anger, and so I've let go of anger, but I was still believing in the illusion of imagination. And I just couldn't accept, as I couldn't accept with anger, that something that is harming me, that something that is actively, without my permission, without my control, is harassing me to the farthest extent of its abilities. And I just had to take it because it's a necessary thing and it's a good thing. So I asked myself, just like I always ask angry people, I ask them, what can you do with anger that you cannot do without anger? They have no answer to that. I have yet to hear an answer to that question. That's where it always stops. And they say, well, nothing, I guess. Or again, they give me the stuff about motivation, and then I say, well, can't reason give you the motivation? Can't reason tell justice from injustice, and in fact can do it even better because it has the clarity of reason rather than the blindness of rage on its side? And does it not know the proper procedure to go against injustice? And does it not even see that proper procedure even better because, once again, it has that calm, clear vision of every single thing that needs to be done against injustice? So can't you use reason instead of anger? And in fact, can't you thereby accomplish your mission much better? And most importantly, with peace before, during, and after the entire process of so-called fighting injustice? And they say, yeah, I suppose I can. I suppose this resentment, this disgust that I have with the world, and that doesn't even let me sleep, or most importantly, doesn't even let me have peace, I guess I can do without it. And I guess with reason, not only can I have peace while I go against injustice, but I can go against injustice even better. Interesting. So now, this thing that has been harassing you, you can let go of. And so thinking about the emotions, the passions, anger, hatred in that way showed me, or at least gave me the strong suspicion, that nothing in this universe that is truly good is not also wholly good. I have the suspicion now that everything that is truly good is wholly good. It does not ask you to swallow suffering along with goodness. It does not ask you to take pain along with joy. It does not say, I will do good things for you, but I will also harass you. That's just not the universe that I believe we live in. Not emotionally, just reasonably, I don't think so. I don't see evidence of that. It is always illusion that says, I am necessary to you. And even my harassment is necessary. That's just the price you have to pay for my services. That's what anger says. I will harass you, but in return, I will give you energy, I will give you motivation, I will give you life. Of course, it's a trick. It's not giving you life, it is sucking your life. To be alive itself. It's trying to take your life, to give itself life. and it's destroying you. And so, okay, and this process is still ongoing, where I said, if imagination is like that, again, I don't know, I'm open to all conclusions, but if imagination is like that too, then what is the necessity of it? Because if I already know it's harassing me, just like with anger, I've established that. It is harassing me, no doubt about it. So then why don't I let it go? What are the reasons that I say, just like angry people do, but it is necessary to me? It also does good things for me. And the first and foremost thing that came up within me as a response to that was, what about creativity? What about art? What about beauty? Doesn't so much, if not all of it, at least in part, come from imagination? Doesn't creativity come from imagination? And as soon as I said that within me, as soon as that came up within me, a response to that came up too. And it said to me, don't you see that every single truly creative person in any field, take architecture, that's what came to my mind. When an architect or some sort of designer in that field looks at an empty piece of land, it sees the hill, it sees where is the sun coming from, it sees all of that. Doesn't the architect of the truly creative, skilled, excellent architect, don't they say, aha, I see it. I see it. All I need to do now is to make it happen, is to physically make it come about. They don't sit there saying, oh, but okay, so how could I do that? Let me try to imagine that. And then, no, I'm not sure. Maybe this and maybe that. And if that, then this and this and this and this. And then no, scratch. Oh, no, that's terrible. And I hate it. And it's just not working. Or aha, maybe this. They just see it. Every composer in music, again, the creative ones, the truly skilled ones, the most amazing ones that we listen to hundreds of years later after their death, don't all of them say, I can hear the piece. I can already hear it. It's inside of my head. All I need to do is to write it down. And it's the same with a visual artist. I can see the sculpture is right there. All I need to do is to carve it out. I see the painting. I've already painted it in my head. Don't they say that? Don't painters say that? I have already painted it in my head. It's just there. And all their work goes towards putting on canvas what they already see in their head. And it's the same with the greatest writers. They say, I received it. They don't even take credit for it. They say, I received these words. I don't know where they came from, but I just had to write them down. I was just a conduit for it. They didn't sit there and say, what should I write about? Maybe something like this. Oh, that would be great. That would impress a lot of people. Or, let me imagine writing a kind of piece. What would that look like? And then being harassed by the wrong words that come to them and say, oh, this is a worthy word. This is a good one. Okay, and so where do I go from here? No. They just come into the mind. And so it has occurred to me, or at least once again, it is a suspicion, because once again, this is still ongoing. I haven't decided one way or another. But it seems to me that creativity is more of a vision than imagination. Just like I can see a house that is already built, the skilled creative architect can see the house that is not yet built. It's the same vision. It's the same kind of thing. But I can only see what is already there, but the creative person can see, just like I see the physical thing, as if it is already there. That's how well and clear they can see it. And again, I'm not a musician. I can't hear it in my head. You will have to write it down, and you'll have to even play it for me to say, oh, that's a beautiful melody. But the person who composed it heard it before it was even written down, let alone performed. And I'm not a painter, so you'll have to make the painting for me to see it. But you, as the creative skilled painter, you already saw it before you ever made it. And so, to me, creativity, beauty, art seems to be closer to vision rather than imagination. And imagination seems to me closer to the speculation than to vision. Imagination seems to be speculation. And great artists, architects, scientists, any creative endeavor that you want to think of, they don't speculate. They have vision. And so if creativity, art, beauty, the creative vision has nothing to do with imagination, then what am I holding on to it for? No need. And so truly, something that is truly good is wholly good. And in imagination, once again, it's still ongoing. I'm still looking for a good reason to hold on to imagination. I haven't let it go yet. It's still happening. Less, but it's still happening. So I'm still looking for reasons to hold on to it. Why I should suffer for it. But I'm not coming up with any good reasons. And the one reason that seemed to be a really good reason has been destroyed. To me, creativity, art, beauty comes from vision, not from imagination. And so that's one thing. And so if something within me comes up with another reason, I will look at it in the same way. I will say, is this really imagination? Is it tied to that? Or is this something of another nature that is wholly and truly good? And so it's not tied to imagination. So it's yet another reason to let go of imagination, or at least it is not a reason to hang on to it. And so this is still ongoing, and I encourage you to explore this for yourself, because we're all suffering from imagination. We all are. There's not a single person who says, imagination is all good for me. And so, if we all together participate in this, whatever comes out of it will be for our benefit, right? Because truth has never hurt us. Never. Even if someone comes in right now and says, hey, I'll give you a good reason why imagination is good, and they give it to me and say, wow, okay, yeah, I mean, there's no way around that. It seems to be that's imagination, and it's really good for us, a major benefit, and we cannot let go of imagination. Absolutely not. Then I will gladly suffer for imagination, and it can harass me as much as it wants. I will be happy to be harassed by it for that reason, whatever that may be. Or you say, here is yet another reason to let go of it, and another, and another, and another. And in fact, I will give you the reason of all reasons to let go of it right now. And so then I will drop it, whatever the outcome it will be to my benefit. And since I'm not alone in this is a human nature thing. This is not unique to me. We all have imagination, and we are all harassed by it, one way or another, to one extent or another. And we all hang on to it. We all allow it because we think it's necessary and or beneficial to us somehow. And we're also too afraid often to stand up to things that are harassing us. And so, but as it is with everything else, we must let go of fear. We must do the opposite of fear. of what fear tells us, because it has always lied to us, right? So that's not a reason to stay with anything, imagination or otherwise, fear. That which is known, that which is harassing us but comfortable. No, it's not a reason to hang on to that at all. And so that's not a reason either. So I'm looking for reasons, right? I'm looking for reasons. Why should I hang on to this? Why should I remain in this abusive relationship is what it comes down to. Right? And so, like I said, it's ongoing, but I find that the more I look at it this way, every single good thing that happens in my life, or that I'm able to do with my awareness, with my attention, that I thought was tied to imagination, I find I can do it independently of imagination. And what I'm getting into the habit now, again, this is all very much ongoing, is every time these harassments come in, this imagination that I can clearly tell it's imagination. It's not creative vision like that comes to me and just says you need to do this. These are the words. This is what to say. This is what to think. This is what to see. But I know, no, it's clearly something argumentative within me. It's not something that just comes and shows me something like it does to the architect or to the musician or to the painter. But when it's something that it's arguing with me, and it's showing me things that are clearly supposed to disturb me. Whenever that's happening now, I know what's what. And automatically it falls off of me. Because whenever I see that story, that argumentation, that what if, that speculation, that imagination often brings with it, I can tell that it's imagination and it's not creativity or any other good thing. And so naturally, I lose interest in it. I say, why should I allow you, right? And just my thought goes to something else, and it just dissolves. But of course, at the same time, it is very intentional, and it takes some effort to discern what's what, and to sometimes also force it out, to say, okay, I'm just not going to think about this. I'm just not going to let this spiral. I'm just not going to participate in that form of speculation. And, one last small thing about that is, it's in the name. Imagination is imaging. Imagination is to make images. Creative vision is an image or other things, it could be music or words, like we said, that you receive. It is a vision, it is a seeing. But imagination is the creation of images. And images are illusions. And so to imagine, to create an image, is to create an illusion. And I don't anymore want to create illusions for myself. I'm trying to get rid of illusions. I'm not trying to pick up more illusions. That's the last thing I want to do. But I was the one doing it. It doesn't just happen. Although it is external to me, although my imagination is not me, our thoughts are not us, our emotions are not us, they do happen to us, of course. But there's a large amount of, in fact, the largest amount of their harassment comes from us participating in them by saying, okay, I see you've come in. I will hold your hand. I will speak to you. Let's have a conversation. Let's argue. That's where most of the harassment comes from. I allow that story to continue, the hummingbird to come in, to turn it into a dog, and then all that. I'm allowing that. I'm not making it, but I am allowing it. And so why should I allow it anymore? Again, I haven't decided yet. I'm not telling you to drop imagination. I'm really not, because I don't know myself. I'm in the process of doing it, of exploring it, rather. And so my exploration might lead me to the exact opposite of what I'm now suspecting might be the case, or as it is happening currently, it might just further strengthen my suspicion in it. Whatever it will be, I'll let you know. I'll let you know what the result, if I ever get to one, is. But right now, this is the state of things. And so that's why I had to say, ask me during kinship, because if I had written this down, this would be longer than Emerson's essays right now. And so,
well, thank you so much for opening, obviously, something that's incredibly personal. And that, obviously, that was for me, very unexpected. I had kind of theoretics in my mind, and you've given a quite a deep, touching personal account there. And yeah, it's really what's interesting to me is that you went, because what I was hearing was this helplessness of the situation, and the fact that your comparison was to anger, and that for me is exactly how I understand anger as well. It's like it's this resistance to the helplessness of a situation, and so anger's response to that is I'm going to get righteous. This is I'm going to reject this and create arguments of injustice around this to again, you can call it an act of fiction, right, into create these stories. But something feels quite distinct to me for imagination in that you can get angry at your helplessness of your imagination, and that there is also the fact that a mind has a mind of its own in a sense, and that's where I think the imagination come into it, and the what I'm wary of being prescriptive here. It's not for me to say one way or the other, but it sounds like you're contending with, and based on my own experiences, you're dealing with the fragility of our awareness. It really can be very easily knocked off its tilt, and that has a quite an alarming helplessness to it, because you can hold on dearly to our awareness and our notion of reality, and that can knock us off the kilt. And I can definitely see the appeal to therefore go to divine inspiration. Essentially, is what I was hearing there. It's all the great scientists, artists, musicians, architects, like you say, they can move the bricks around, but the final solution just seems to come out of nowhere. And that's definitely been my own personal experiences. Whenever I've been working on problems, you'll go at it for days and weeks, and then when you're not even thinking about it, you're washing the dishes or brushing your teeth. That's when the answer comes to you.
Yeah,
But
and
I
you know
do
what?
wonder.
Just a little important thing to say in that, and then I want you, don't forget the thought. I want you to continue right where you left off. But I think an important distinction to make also in what I said, just to add to that, is I'm not telling you to not do anything anymore, to not read books, to not work at a problem, to not strengthen yourself in some way, to not seek resources, to not talk to people, to not be confused sometimes, and to not try to solve that anymore, and just lay in bed and to wait for the answer to come to you. I'm not saying that, right? Because your mind, the creative vision, needs to see in order to perceive, and that seeing in the realm of ideas is, among many other things, reading a book, talking to a friend, talking to an expert, perhaps talking to an artist, trying new things, experimenting things going wrong, adjusting, and doing whatever you think is necessary for you to uh, give yourself the materials, the tools, the information that you need to put into this box that will then spit out that final, as you said, that final answer, or that missing link, or whatever it may be. So this is not a call for inactivity, right? Quite the
Mm,
opposite.
mm,
I'm saying be more active in the things that are tools, that work, that are truly good and wholly good, and rely less on this thing that has made itself so necessary to you, seemingly, but is mostly really just harassing you, right? Instead of
mm,
going into that room and to argue with this thing endlessly, trying to get an answer of it because you think you need it, and you think it has information for you, and you think it has knowledge and answers for you. My suspicion is that it doesn't, and so you can take all that time and read more books and do it at peace, not with this compulsive, obsessive need to extract something from it as if you're owed it or anything, but just to say, I'm inclined to think that this book might have a certain piece of the puzzle. So I will take whatever time it takes to read that book. And what comes out of it comes out of it. Again, I trust the creative vision that it will come to me, right?
mhm,
And so do even more of that if you have to. It's not about inactivity, right? So I just want to say that because when we are in the midst of illusion, just like I was and perhaps am about imagination, and used to be about anger, about emotions, and about whatever other things that I am still currently ignorant on or have been ignorant on, um, our mind within that ignorance always looks for excuses, always looks for, but this person is contradicting himself in this part. And so their whole argument is useless and I should never listen to it, right? But no, there's truth in it. And your mind is just looking for an exit, that the ego, the imagination, the anger, the righteous anger is just looking for a reason to continue to be angry. It doesn't want to die. And so it will grasp at anything, right? And so in this case, it might be, so you're telling us to just never do anything? I don't think it works like that, buddy. I'm not saying that. So that's just something I wanted to put out there before we move on from that. But yeah, please continue exactly where you were.
No, you kind of in part answered the direction I was going in. The kind of the thing I had in mind is more play. I'm thinking like a child playing with Play-Doh sort of thing. There is this mode of where you can call it imagination or play. I think play is the imagination out in the real world. When you're manipulating reality, and imagination is like manipulating our thoughts, let's say. And there is that act of just playing without a goal in mind. You're not trying to create a building. You're just doing this sake for the sake of it. And this, at least to me, there's something sticky with emotion, with imagination in that regard. That there's this it's a bit like a knife, right? You can use a knife to carve a piece of wood, or you can use it to kill someone. It really is ambivalent. It can really is about the manner in which it's used. And the trickiness to the imagination is, like I said, it has a mind of its own. It really is something that can lead us astray quite seriously. But there is, in as much as we can play with that notion of control around our imagination, there perhaps can be utility around that. At least for me, there's something clinging onto that aspect of
So
the
how does,
imagination.
so perfect then. So how does imagination serve you? How does it benefit you? What do you use it for? That is good.
So I can speak specifically to like things I'm working on at the moment. So I've just started a new job, and it's very much like a massive domain change for me. So it's I was in the world of neuroscience. I've now got into cancer research, and there are ways in which I can apply all my background to this. So it very much is I'm deliberatively trying to make my old model way of research fit into this world. And it's a bit of a fun game at the moment. It's like trying to play around with the Lego pieces, because whilst I'm lacking the knowledge, I'm trying to translate my experience. So for me, that feels quite deliberative, and I know it's a placeholder until I get the right level of knowledge that I can be more kind of automatic in that space. But in the meantime, in that kind of learning process, it feels like I'm engaging with my imagination in that game.
But how do you know that that's the same imagination that also harasses you at some points? How do you know that that is that external image making thing in you that often also harasses you? How do you know it's the same thing?
So I think for me, what comes to mind, it's the degree of how coupled it is to reality. That in terms of my distinction between imagination and fantasy, is we can couple our imagination to reality, and we can play around with the pieces of reality, or we can completely uncouple it. And you've entered a realm of fantasy, right? We're talking about things that could never be physically occurring in reality. And that still can be a thing of good. We've seen beautiful pieces of fiction and fantasy, but it also can be a thing of absolute nightmares and hell, right? That's for me, the basis of hell is nightmarish fantasies.
So you think our only possible connection to reality is through imagination?
I'm very strong of that opinion. Yes, yeah.
And how
So
is that?
in terms, so in the sense of that, in a very real sense, in that if light comes in on hits our retina, and it gets turned into neural activity, and then that has to get passed to our brain. Our brain is trying to make sense out of electrical activity. It's not making sense of reality. It's an encoding of reality. And so in that sense, the sense making is an act of imagination, and it's in the game of trying to make our imagination as realistic as possible, but it still is an imagination. And the common example of this is like visual illusions. We can see two lines that are clearly, the illusion makes them look like they're of different lengths, but we can get a ruler out and they're exactly of the same length. But we can never see past that visual illusion because it's our storytelling is telling us differently.
However, I would also say that I clearly see that the sense perception and that which makes sense of sense perception are also both part of nature. They're both part of the universe. They're not separate. You don't stand apart from the universe. You don't stand apart from nature. So that which hits your retina is of the same nature as your retina, as well as everything that happens past it. The process of making sense of a sense perception is just as much part of the process of reality. It is not outside of reality. Nothing is outside of reality. Your lungs are made for air. It's not something that is unrelated to it. They are both just as much part of the same universe, of the same reality, as is everything else. I feel like sometimes we have this inclination as human beings to see ourselves set apart from nature, as if we are that which observes nature and even sometimes controls nature, but not something that is just as much part of nature as the things that we observe. And so I don't see myself as standing apart. That mechanism, that very mechanism that transmits the electricity, the vision, the things that my retina perceives into images in my brain, or the perception in my brain, is no different than the process that comes before it. It is all one process. Because
do you not think that it in some way acts like a filter? We don't see the full range of visible light, right? We don't see UV or infrared light. In some
you're
way, it's
absolutely right.
diminishing reality.
We only have a limited perspective into reality, but I don't think that we are at all separate from reality. That's the crucial point there. I know that, for example, bees see fragrances almost literally, right, that emanate from flowers, and we can't see that, and they can't see certain things that we can't see. But that doesn't mean that what they perceive is just an imagination of reality. They are perceiving a part of reality that is very real. It's not made up. It's not imagined. It's not filtered in the sense that it is interpreted. It is very real. It is direct in that sense. They're just taking a different slice of the cake than we are as humans. That's why I say we are able to take. And a dog, again, another. And a tree doesn't have perhaps any visual input, but can sense very different sense perceptions than you and I, or a bee or a dog can sense. And so I feel as though, yes, we are only looking through a tiny slot towards reality, but we are seeing reality. And not only are we seeing reality, we are just as much part of that which we see. We are not set apart. And so I'm not a scientist. I'm not educated in the way as you are. So perhaps that knowledge would help me more understand what you're saying. But I'm just speaking intuitively. I feel though, as we are not one bit separated from reality, and so that what we see is not, in a sense, a representation of reality. It is reality, right? Because there's true representation, false representation, but I don't think it is a representation. It is reality in whatever sense. And yeah, there are optical illusions, but the optical illusion itself is not an unreal thing either. It is a real thing. You see what I mean? The effect that it has is real. How it makes that effect is very much according to the laws of the universe. How it brings that about, it does not stand outside and apart from reality. it itself is part of the very reality. There's not a single object, not a single thought that somehow stands separate and independent of reality. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I
I
just
think
said that as if it's fact, but
my take would be it's a trick of reality. So, I mean, first of all, to say, in terms of standing apart from reality, I'm 100% with you. We are in a reciprocal two-way relationship with reality. So, it's not to say that we are distinct from it or anything like that. But, it's just that there is an asymmetry in the way that the information passes to us and the way that we then pass back to it. And we're both, reality and ourselves are both trying to explain each other
but see, as
in
soon as
a
you
kind of.
say reality and ourselves, there's a separation there.
Okay, well, I guess I mean the world, the things that are external to us. And yes, so we're all contained within reality, but there are things that are external to us, and we're internal, we have our internal states, our internal beliefs, and it's about refining our internal beliefs to try and match, the world beliefs as much as possible. In the way that like science tries to, reach a consensus. We each have our own independent thoughts and beliefs and fields of significance, but we reach a consensus, and that becomes the status quo until there is another consensus. It's always in this game of trying to refine our beliefs, and we're never there. And that's because we're closed off from reality. If we had direct access to reality, there would be no need for science because there would be
Right.
no need for hypotheses.
I feel like what you call imagination is what I would call the sense-making apparatus, right? And
Exactly, I agree that that's it exactly.
but so
Yes.
what I would call imagination, though, is the sense-making apparatus, the faulty interpretations of the sense-making apparatus, right?
So false beliefs. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, or whenever I see an optical illusion, the optical illusion is real. Like in itself, it is a real thing. It's not like it doesn't exist, but it represents itself as something else than what it is. And so when I see something that is not truly there, I feel like that is my imagination. And whenever my sense-making mechanism overlaps with reality, with how things truly are and not just how they appear, that's when it's not imagination, but literally, quite literally sometimes, vision. So it might be, maybe it's a semantic difference that we're narrowing in on there. But that semantic difference even can make a big difference, because if we are calling a very real, objectively true thing by the name of something that also harasses us, that can have very real implications, obviously. And so perhaps my little so-called potential discovery about imagination is that it is false perception, right? And that we can perhaps narrow in on something that is the source or the mechanism or where they are contained, whatever they might be, of false perceptions. And so either way, whether it's semantically or not, we might be, again, since it's ongoing, I don't know, we might be narrowing in on something that we can safely let go of, that would take all the harassment, the harm it's doing with it, while still leaving intact that which you call imagination, but which I would see perhaps as the sense-making apparatus overlapping with the truth of reality, right? It would very much leave that still. So you're still thinking about your cancer research, and you're still applying data and information, and you're doing it with creativity also many times, with skill and with that vision. But what it will allow you to do perhaps is to let go of that part of what you maybe thought was also imagination that is harassing you. I don't know. I'm just saying this is sort of the thing that I'm exploring, and that I'm perhaps particularly in the way that you talk about it, I'm seeing maybe a potential benefit there, right? So I think I understand what you call imagination, and I feel like it is more of a semantic difference that we're talking about, right? We're not
I
talking
think
about
that
two
definitely
different,
carry a lot
yeah.
a lot of the way. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So let's keep exploring it, right? You keep exploring imagination in the way that you think about it, and I keep exploring in the way that I think about it. And then the more we talk about it, we'll see whatever differences there are, whether they're semantic or not, and we'll probably, if not almost certainly, get closer to truth, right? And the closer to truth we come, the more I take from you what you have figured out, and the more you take from me what I have figured out, and then we both combine that even perhaps into figuring even more out that we could not have done otherwise independently. We will be coming closer to truth, and the harassment will decrease, our awareness will increase, and again, there's nothing but benefit that can come out of such a process. So I really appreciate you bringing your much more developed scientific mind than perhaps all of ours here in this community to weigh in on something as philosophical as this discussion on the imagination. And I said philosophical in air quotes there because people say, oh, you're looking at it philosophically. How else are you supposed to look at anything? Philosophy means the love of wisdom, right? Which is
You
truth
can
and
also
our
do it
understanding of
scientifically as
reality.
well.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but you see, a lot of things are semantic, or rather, the language, it reflects how we think about it. So it reflects a very real thing, even though it is semantic. So maybe the more we change our thinking pathways, and you as a neuroscientist will perhaps agree with that, the more we align ourselves with how, in fact, reality truly is, rather than our false perception of it, to the extent that we can change certain false perceptions, right? And so, yeah, I thank you very much. And I want to ask you, of course, any other questions or anything else that you wanted to add?
No, not at all. No, I just want to say, very much, wish you well in that regard. And if I, can be of service to help you in your explorations, you've helped me so much. So it would be an absolute pleasure if I could help you in that regard as
Oh,
well. If I am,
you've already helped me. I think in this conversation, there's more that I can't even begin to think about yet, but that will unfold again naturally without me having to hopefully imagine and go into that argumentative, speculative mode that will really enrich my exploration. Again, one way or another, maybe it will destroy that exploration, but I welcome that because I don't want to be engaged in an exploration that is pointless, right? And so, but I also want to ask you, since this is the last opportunity for this particular question of the week, in case you do want to answer it, of course you don't have to, but just to remind everyone, our question of the week, still currently, but ending today, is the question, how does your personality benefit you? Do you have an answer to that? Have you been thinking about that?
yes, yes. Funny enough, kind of on point. In the regard of the dangers of personality. So my take on what is personality, it's a thing that requires two people, right? It's a projection that we make of each other, and there is a choice as to whether or not we identify with that persona, right? And there's also a kind of trickery there. The way I see my personality can be very different to how someone else sees your personality, and someone can offer, sometimes you can come away from a conversation, they will say, oh, you were a bit cold there. And you're like, I thought I was really warm in that situation, So it's quite interesting that, we can't even have agreements on our personalities. And for me, the thing that's been a bit of a journey has been my intellect. I really have identified quite strongly with that around learning and getting lots of high praise for being an intellectual. And, I realized that I kind of was going at it like a banker, the greed of a banker, the way I was learning was exactly like how a banker would count his money. And, it was never enough. I was very greedy with my pursuit of knowledge. And seeing how much I was chasing after that has now got me to the point how I want to be a kind of a philanthropist with my knowledge. I really am at the point, I want to be giving it back now. It really is, I've got enough money, I've got enough knowledge. It's time to start kind of giving back, was like, my result on that.
Amazing, right? And it turns out to truly know something, to understand, most importantly, thyself, as the ancient Greeks say. You don't need to be an intellectual. You don't need to be this or that. You don't even need to have a personality. This is what so the question of the week intends to point out. You don't need to have a personality. And more importantly, your personality is not you. You are what you are. You are a real thing. Your personality is the image that you are producing for yourself, to yourself, and perhaps are also suggesting it to the rest of the world so that they can have an easier time projecting their illusions onto you. Right? You're saying, well, I'm a neuroscientist, so you can call me that. You can think of me as that. You can attach all the beliefs that come with that in your mind to that. Go ahead, right? Just to make it easier for people in the so-called profane physical world to define things, to put things into categories. But truly, deep within inside of you, in your attention, which you truly are simply that which is listening to me right now, or when you were speaking a moment ago, that which is speaking right now. And that's all you are. And to be that, and to be wholly that, and complete by that, doesn't require you to do anything, to have a personality, to have a personality type, to go on comparing your personality to your past self, or to compare your personality to other people's personalities and to somehow come on top or improved or better or in any way, shape, or form different, is entirely unnecessary. And in fact, often standing in the way of the very thing that you are, which is your awareness. The attention that you can give to your work, to ideas, to your explorations, to that which will make you come closer to that which you are already standing on, which is peace. Right? Personality often does not enhance our peace. It does quite the opposite. It obstructs it. It's not like it damages peace. Peace will always be there. Peace is the fundament of everything. Everything rests on top of peace. It's like the bedrock of everything. And so we don't need anything on top of that. And the more we take away, the more we just sit on that very bedrock rather than on top of the flimsy little things that we've put on it, right? That's how I see it. Obviously, there are other ways of thinking about it, and there's no right or wrong or particularly mine is healthy, yours is unhealthy kind of thing. But I think it helps us all to realize that while personality has its technical, logistical, especially uses, it does not truly impact who you are. You can change your personality all you want. You cannot make yourself better. Or other people can think of your personality, i.e. you, as much as they want. They cannot make you worse. They cannot make you a less peaceful, a less kind, a less respectful, a less aware person. They cannot, unless you let them, of course. But again, that's you doing it, not other people. So I appreciate that answer very much, as well as everything else you've said, of course. Very insightful. And I only hope, without any expectation, that we get to continue to do that in this life, at least a couple more times, and to see whatever it may be, as long as it is truth, what comes out of it and what it tells us, and to just better orient ourselves towards reality, whether we do that through imagination or through some kind of vision, whatever it may be. As long as it leads us to truth, I'm all good with it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And I will put you back to the audience. Thank you again. That was an amazing discussion, an amazing information that we got, and a perspective that we got from someone who, at least in the work of bread, is engaged with something perhaps very different than what most of us are doing, which only adds color and nuance to our accumulated knowledge, which is arguably the most logistically beneficial thing that has ever happened to humanity, the ability to accumulate knowledge. I will take one more speaker, and then don't forget, I have a new question of the week for you. And it's quite an amazing one, I would say. And I will invite our next speaker here.
So hi.
Hi.
So relating to my perfectionism, since I can remember, I have been a perfectionist who claims to control. On a positive note, it results in the successful completion of planned tasks. So I do not make any excuses when I put my mind on something, because I want to achieve, whether I want to achieve a goal, a specific goal, from like daily tasks to more bigger bigger plans. So it helps achieve results in multiple areas. Um, so the main thing is, I feel it feels it robs me of my time, because I have a sense that I put too much effort, unnecessary effort, when I put my mind or my intentions on something. This can be from like I said, daily uh, simple things to bigger things, and how to draw the line between like good enough and perfect, and how to avoid like that rigidity, I say, to relinquish some of that control. And can discipline be like a form of self-love? Or and then you uh, last kinship, you said that one thing that I kept thinking about, which was that our personality constrains us, and I keep repeating myself that thing you said, because I think it applies here. What do you think?
What I would ask you again, what requires you
Mhm.
to get certain things done by a certain time in a certain way? Who requires that of you?
Myself,
Do you,
my
yeah.
my personality. I don't know how to answer that other way,
Does your
because no one imposes
personality
me. It's
have any right
myself.
to demand anything of you?
No, of course not. That's why I think it's a big issue. I mean, since I was a kid, like I learned to tie my shoes, my lace shoes in the same day. I I haven't done anything on that day. I was like 4 years old or something. My mother told me that, and I'm like, yeah, I have to have this done. So I will put my mind on it. Though I could take more time to do that, not in a like rigid way. You see what I mean? Uh, it like robs me my time, because good enough would be would be preferable in most cases, and I struggle with that because when I try and do good enough, like my mind keeps getting back to that thing. It's like a very strong um, characteristic I have in me. I don't know how to say it. Besides perfectionism, some people say it's a good thing. Other people say it can be bad. I mean, in workplaces, I think it might be good for for
Why do you
getting
call
things
it
done. But
perfectionism?
because what is perfectionism? It's wanting to do things not just good but well. I think it's like trying to achieve perfect.
But
And I think it's bad. I recognize it.
who decides what is
What, like
done
an
well and
obsession?
what
It
is
can be an
done
obsession.
perfectly or not?
It should not be me. Should not be me, because apparently I don't I don't I cannot deal with that in a good way.
Who should it be then?
It can be an obsession, I think. Well, depending on what we are talking about, I mean, but I think it's my own conscience. I cannot have any other answer because this is a thing I think that doesn't mix with others. I think it can it relates to my own self.
Okay, so it's
And
not
the
anyone
thing
else
is,
doing this
it
to you.
causes
It's
me.
not God requiring it of you. It's not even society requiring it of you or forcing it on you. It's you who's not only allowing this,
Mhm.
but actively keeps believing in its necessity, right?
Yes,
And you are also seeing its
it is not
damaging
an
effects,
external
right?
force. Hmm.
And you could nevertheless continue to allow it, right?
No, I have not. I mean, not 100%, but since I acknowledge it was something that okay, the task was done and it was okay, but um, why did I have to uh, keep I don't debating, keep perfecting
So
this?
that's what I'm saying. You're the one
And some
requiring
time
it,
ago,
and you are the one suffering from
hmm
it. And since it is also you doing it, no one else is doing it, you are both the person who is requiring it, as well as enabling it, as well as suffering from it, as well as aware that all of these things are fact. Is that correct?
yeah, that's why I think I'm I'm the only solution. I'm the only one who can deal with it
Right. So
because
you need
since I
to
acknowledge
stop
it,
allowing it.
that's why I'm talking about it. I try, but sometimes I don't think I 100%
What? Well,
can do that depending on the task.
just keep torturing yourself then.
Yeah, it's a form of torture.
Yeah. So
That's
keep
why
doing it because that's what you want.
no, but the thing is, I don't want who wants.
No, but you want it because
I don't.
you are the one doing it. You are the one
I
requiring it
want the
of
result,
yourself.
but
You are the one allowing it to continue because it's source and doer and everything is you. And so since it is continuing, the only reason could possibly be that you want it to happen. And so you want torture. You want to suffer. You want to be in that particular kind of misery, at least for now. So keep being in misery until you don't want it anymore.
but that's why I was curious to if you were like in my shoes, what would be your take on this? What's your
That's my
uh,
take. That's my take. You
your
want to be
advice?
you currently want to be in misery in this particular way. And so there's no one
No,
else
that's why I'm
who
trying to.
can change what you want. Only you can change what you want. And so you need to right now remain in this particular type of misery, in this particular type of self-torture until you don't want it anymore. That's what I would
So when do
say
you
is
think I know?
necessary.
When do you think I know I don't want it anymore? When
When you truly see that it is destroying you and that it is pointless and that the only driving force behind it is you yourself, whatever it may be, some illusion, some clearly conflicted belief, whatever it may be, um, but that is what's driving it, and it's all inside of you. So if you if you are the doer and you keep doing it, that means you want it. You might not understand the type of wanting that I'm talking about, right? Because wanting usually is I want something good, and so I go and get it. But since the facts tell us You are the doer. You are the person who requires that you do this to yourself. And you are also the person who has to and is allowing it currently. That is factual evidence that proves that you want to suffer in this way, at least for now, at least right now in this way. And so my only advice to you is keep suffering.
I think balance is key. What I want is balance. It's not to continue torturing myself.
But you are
The
torturing
steps
yourself,
to
right?
achieving balance, not always, not like
Okay,
I
but
used to,
you engage in torture, right?
but still. Sometimes I think yes.
Okay, so then keep doing it until you don't want to torture yourself anymore. Become sick of it. You're not sick of it yet. If you were sick of it, you wouldn't be doing it. Plain and simple, right? Because there's no one, I'm not doing this to you. No one else is doing this to you. Some natural catastrophe, phenomenon, physical thing, it's not what's doing it to you. You are doing it to you. And so clearly you're not sick of it yet. So live with it. See it happening as you already are to some extent, as you yourself are saying. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here even talking about it, right? To some extent, you're seeing it, but not enough to be sick of it, not enough to stop it. So I would just recommend that you keep suffering, that you keep torturing yourself until you say, this is so ridiculous, like this is so pointless, and it will naturally fall off of you. You still see some sense in it right now, somehow. You still, in some way, think it is benefiting you, at least to some extent. And so as long as you believe that, as long as you are literally saying that torture is somehow, in some way, at some point, in some form, beneficial to you, then you will keep doing it. And so you need to keep doing it until it stops being beneficial to you. Of course, it's not beneficial to you, but I can say that to you all day long, that torture is not beneficial to you. Clearly, you're not seeing the point. And so keep doing it. Okay, keep doing it. See, this is what I call perfectionism. I wouldn't even call it anything. I wouldn't put a narrative on it if I were you. Because a narrative is only something that has a beginning and a progression and an end, a story arc, as we see in like hero movies, right? Where you say you meet the enemy and then you fight it, and then there's this battle, and then this thing, and you think all that is still coming, and you think that story is just being written, and so you have to prepare for this fight that will enable you to finally drop it, and you have this whole narrative in your head. I would suggest that you drop the narrative, that you just see it for what it is, an action that doesn't make sense. And it has no other implication in your life other than it itself. There's no narrative, there's no story that it's contributing to. And I wouldn't put a name on it either, because what is called perfectionism is many things. And so you think that's what you have, and so you're Googling it, or you're talking to people about it, and you're saying some people say this about it, some people say this. And so you're getting yourself all confused, filling your head with other people's ideas, and constructing a narrative out of that, trying to change the narrative at the same time, but feeling powerless to do so, et cetera, et cetera. So all that is currently going on. So I suggest that you just keep suffering from it so that you become sick of it. And when you become sick of it, anything you've ever become sick of in your life, you just stop doing. There was no one telling you to do it. You didn't have to buy anything. You didn't have to study for anything. You didn't have to do anything. It just fell off of you, right? And so pay attention to it. Don't ignore it. I'm not saying you are ignorant. I'm just saying really try to not ignore any of it. See the harm that it's doing objectively, and But don't fall into shame and guilt either. Don't say, "Oh, I've done it again, and I'm such a perfectionist, and I keep suffering from it. And is this ever going to end?" Don't do any of that. Just see it, observe it, what it's doing. Right? I do this, I get this result every time. Just see that. Don't call yourself any name. Again, no regret, no anything. You will not be a more valuable person if you overcome this, and you will not be a less valuable person if you don't. This is just for you to have a better time in life. You don't want torture, and you certainly don't want self-inflicted torture. And so, but you're not seeing the point in it yet.
I'm starting.
Sorry, say that again?
No, I started, but I'm currently in the midst of getting sick of it.
Okay, so just keep doing that.
I'm not in the
Yeah, and that's okay. There's no rush. You know, it shows you that you're not there yet. Otherwise, it would be over, right? And so just take your time, do whatever you need to do. But you know, the only thing I can tell you, which goes for anything, is just pay attention to it. The more to be sick of something, you need to be aware of something. And so the more aware you are of something wrong, the sicker of it you will get. And so don't distract yourself. Don't say, I've fallen into perfectionism again. And so I was gonna do this for myself. I was gonna read a little bit, or I was gonna take a bath or whatever. But I'm gonna punish myself. I'm gonna distract myself, or I'm gonna not try to do something because I fear that I'm gonna fall into perfectionism again. And don't do any of that. Go about your day the way that you do things, and notice the results you're getting from the particular things that you're doing. And if it's a problem, you will become sick of it, and you will naturally drop it. Okay?
Yes, I see your point.
So just try that. And then if you want to help other people, once you've become sick of it, if you feel like doing that, of course, you have no requirement. You can come back and say, hey, this is how I did it, or this is what happened, right? And so this worked for me. I suggest it to you also, right? Because we're all dealing with not only things that we are doing to ourselves that we don't want to be doing, like self-torture, right? But literally with perfectionism, I think everyone has or is dealing with that. And so it'd be a great service if you feel so inclined to offer your suggestions, whatever comes out of this. But yeah, it's up to you, no requirements. And I hope that you see that for yourself a little bit too, that just like you have no requirement to share that with other people, you have no obligation to do anything in a certain way. If you truly give yourself to reason and don't do things so emotionally, if you just do things because they make sense in the way that they make sense, to the extent that reason tells you they make sense, you will just leave it right there. You won't go further into so-called perfectionism. That's how to know that good enough is good enough, is to the extent that reason tells you something is necessary. Right? And as soon as an emotion comes into it, let's say you want to make yourself a little garden and you start planting flowers, and reason tells you, this is enough. If you do any more than this, it will be a lot to take care of. You're starting to plant a lot of different types of flowers and plants, and so they're going to require they're going to have different needs, and might be really overwhelming. But you say, but I can't be proud of this yet. This is not an impressive enough garden yet for me to take a photo of it, put it on social media, impress my friends with it, or impress the neighbors with it. And so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make this really, really impressive and lush and beautiful. And I don't care how exotic and how wrong the climate for these flowers are. They're going to look very, very impressive for a certain amount of time. And even though they're going to require a lot of care, I'm going to do this. That's how you know that you're slipping into extreme passion, right? Ambition, pride, and that's how you know that you're engaging in perfectionism, so to speak. What I understand perfectionism is, and most importantly, that's how you know that you are no longer with reason and that you have exceeded that which is reasonable.
Okay, yeah. Because what I feel is that the main point is that it robs me
It doesn't rob you
my
anything.
freedom.
You are robbing yourself of your freedom. This is what I'm saying. You have not
Yeah,
yet
but
become sick of it yet. You are not seeing this yet. That's exactly what I'm saying. There is no requirement for you to be a perfectionist. There is no urge like that out in the universe that it is putting on you. You are robbing yourself of that. You
yes,
think
yeah.
that's how it should be done.
Mhm.
And so you think that's you need to suffer that, but you don't. And so the more you do it, the more you'll understand, wow, I could just not be doing this. I could just listen to reason, and reason has already objectively, factually, demonstrably told me that this is not only enough, but this is well and proper. And I don't need to go any further. I don't need to stress myself at all. What is right feels right. And so reason has already told me that, but I'm going to go past that. Well, then you are doing that. It's not robbing you of anything. There is no such thing as perfectionism. It's a concept that's made up. It just describes the behavior of you doing something.
Yes, I will certainly think back on your point of getting sick of it. It's not like it it doesn't interfere with my either professional or other people, other my relationships. No, it's just
But
an
see,
a thing
your
that
professional work and your
so
relationships are secondary to peace. Peace is number one, and it is interfering with that. The highest good is
yeah,
truth,
100.
is peace. Right? Peace is the absence of turmoil, of suffering. And you are making yourself suffer. So
Mm-hmm.
you can give yourself peace. You're thinking, and this is what the ego, the false self, the not you, the lies, the illusions will tell you. Oh, it's not impacting you professionally. It's not damaging your relationships. It's just you suffering. That's not important. That's the most important thing. Your peace is the most important thing. And 1 second in perfectionism is 1 second away from peace. And so if you are willing to keep giving what you define as perfectionism your peace, 1-to-1, 10 minutes spent in perfectionism or 10 minutes fewer time spent in peace. But peace is always there waiting for you. You're the one up and about engaged with something else when you could just sit down and be with peace, right? And so if you are still willing to spend more time with so-called perfectionism than with peace, then so be it. You're doing that. And so it's about priorities, it's about awareness, it's about understanding the cost of things. Your priority should not be your work or your relationships, other people, what they are thinking, what they are experiencing, but it is you. The best thing you can do for other people is the best thing you can do for yourself, which is peace. To be a peaceful person, to be at peace, to be of peace, to be with peace, to be conducive to peace, all of that. And so you want to take that yourself away from peace, then go ahead and do that until you're sick of it. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But also, just like there's no
Okay.
requirement for you to be a perfectionist, there's also no requirement for you to figure this out today, this week, this month, this year. You keep suffering as much as as long as you like, and no one gets to tell you that you are wrong, or that you have been doing it for too long, or that you should have never done it in the beginning. No one gets to tell you that. You get to do whatever you want. If you want to be a perfectionist, go be a perfectionist. If you want to be at peace, go be at peace. And if you don't know how to be at peace, take your time as much as you need to learn it. It is all inside of you. As long as you know that fact, you have everything you need.
Yeah, that was very insightful indeed. No one ever approached that that issue in that honest way.
Yeah, because people, and that
I think
very
that
much
I
includes
needed to hear
our
that.
friends and family. And yes, you're absolutely right. What you just said, you already knew all of this. That's what I keep saying to everyone. We already all know all the answers. It's about remembering, not about learning. And I was going to say, especially our friends and family, when we come to them and say, just as an example, which is what you're dealing with, "Oh, I'm such a
Mm-hmm.
perfectionist. I don't know how to let go of it, etc." They will say, "Oh, but you just know what you want. You have great taste, and you're really strong. You just know what you want. Sometimes you just need to go do that." And yeah, well, who says that perfectionism? Perfectionism can be very good too. No one. Very few people, of course, not no one, understands it's about peace. And so, of course, it's wrong if it takes away
Mm-hmm.
from your peace. But they also, a lot of people just don't want to deal with um, telling you something that they think you don't want to hear. They want to just turn it somehow into a compliment and say, but look at it this way. All the things you're accomplishing with perfectionism, that's not helping. It's not
Mm-hmm.
helping at all. And so don't rely, and that includes very much me or anyone else in here. Don't rely on other people's opinions. It's great if I can offer you a suggestion that actually makes sense to you and that helps you. But you really, really, I truly mean this, you don't need anyone's help. As long as you come to the understanding that you already have peace, you're sitting on it, it's just obstructed to you because of the things you do to yourself. So then you already know that you can have it. You already have it. You're just not seeing it. And so you don't need anything from anyone else. That's the important point. Okay. So I'll leave you with that for you to think about that. I think if you give yourself to it, as with any other problem, you will find your own unique solution and it will work excellently for you. I almost said perfectly. So I
So
will
thank you
move
for
you.
your honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. I will move you to the audience just because we're so out of time and I still want to talk about the
Yeah, that's okay.
question of the week. But I appreciate your question very much because, yeah, like I said, it's something we all deal with. And we need to become sick of things that are harassing us. I think that's the theme for today. And only we can do that. And so I thank everyone very much for their questions and their insights. And I want to give you the question of the week really quickly before we end. So the new question of the week is this: are your role models your friends or your idols? Are your role models your friends or your idols? So that's what I would like us, among the other things we discussed, to think about this week, because I think it points to a very liberating and important truth, and that's what we are the beneficents of always, in whatever shape or form it comes. Truth has never hurt you. Truth has always been good for you. And so however you can get it, welcome it.